The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The Derbyshire DALES series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Hello folks, good morning. Today we're in the Derbyshire Dales. We're here all week. I've just had a very scary experience. I've driven here to this village through the town of Wirksworth, and let me tell you, when the weather looks like this, it's quite difficult to navigate some of the roads. Hopefully this village won't be quite as bad as you may think. We'll see. We're not going to be seeing much, to be fair, because with the weather like this, a bit misty, a bit cloudy, it sort of restricts what I can actually pick up with the camera. We'll see how we do. Welcome to Carsington. Carsington, Cress Farm. This week on TVI, we're back in the Derbyshire Dales. I won't be doing many of these this year, so make the most of this little lot, won't you? All week, we're exploring the area around the Dales' largest reservoir, Carsington Water, but it won't make an actual appearance until tomorrow. The reason for that will become clear in due course, but at least that means today we can focus on the village that gives the reservoir its name. Welcome to Carsington, which sits among some rolling limestone hills between Wirksworth and Ashbourne. The name Carsington comes from Old English and means farm or settlement growing with cress. Early spellings include Cressington in 1290 and even Gershetoun, which also refers to watercress and some wet ground. The name makes sense because the old Scow Brook once flowed through the area before the reservoir was built. Carsington has very ancient roots, with evidence of Roman activity found during the construction of Carsington Water in the late 20th century. Some experts believe the wider Carsington and Wirksworth area may once have been part of the Roman centre of the region's lead industry. That idea makes the parish an exciting place for anyone interested in Roman Britain. You can even go back further in this place. In nearby Carsington Pasture Cave, archaeologists once found the remains of a prehistoric aurochs, which is a type of wild cattle. It dated back more than 6,700 years, so aside from this being potentially Roman, it also contains one of the most fascinating prehistoric landscapes in Derbyshire. During the Middle Ages, Carsington became a centre for lead mining, and mines here supported the smelting industry in Wirksworth. Old shafts, spoil heaps and miners' paths still dot the landscape around the village today, and walkers can still explore those traces. The parish later came under the influence of the Gell family, one of the most prominent families in Derbyshire. Their seat at Hopton Hall lies close to Carsington, and it's famous for its gardens and unusual crinkle-crankle wall. Members of the family were heavily involved in politics. The parish church of St Margaret stands at the heart of the village, and it has a peaceful churchyard and traditional stonework that reflects the long history of the area. Carsington also has a traditional village pub, the Miners' Arms, which dates back to the 16th century. This village is also close to the Tissington Trail and, of course, the circular walking route around the reservoir. Carsington's peaceful setting, long history and outdoor attractions make it a wonderful place for visitors. So let's hope the weather's good this week so we can enjoy it all. Let's get this walk started around Carsington with a wander down the main street. It's called the Town. To the north of this, the landscape is littered with the remains of lead mining, once the main industry that this village was linked with. Carsington, and for that matter the wider Wirksworth area, was once one of the most important lead-producing districts in England. Lead from both Carsington and Brassington was usually smelted in Wirksworth, which acted as the centre for that trade. Mining lead was by no means a modern thing here. The Romans were active around here, and archaeologists have found many of their copulation sites and lead pigs in Carsington. Carsington pasture, just above the village, is one of the best places to see the old mining remains. The area is a scheduled monument and contains hillocks, shafts, coes and buttle dams from mines such as Perseverance, Nicholum and Great Rake. Mining here was dangerous and physically demanding. Derbyshire lead miners faced risks from falling rock, bad air and flooding, and later from gunpowder. That said, the industry supported thousands of people across the Peak District. The Carsington mines formed part of the King's Field, where miners worked under special laws and customs unique to Derbyshire. By the late 18th century, Carsington's mines were well recorded, and ore accounts survive from 1792 for mines such as Flaxpiece, Breck Hollow and Waterholes. So at the bottom of the town there's actually a lane called Mining Lane. Here it is, look, you see? Mining Lane. And if you look up there you can see the hillocks and the shafts from some of the old lead mines up there on the hill. Here we have St Margaret's Church. This stands at the heart of Carsington and it's a Grade II listed building. Evidence shows that a church existed here as early as the 12th century, making it one of the oldest features in the village today. The present layout dates from around 1320, giving the building a long and fascinating history. One of the most interesting features here is the sundial set into the wall inscribed "Re-edified 1648. This marks a major rebuilding after some turmoil in the 17th century. The church also gained new windows and battlements during that period, giving it the shape we see today. Inside, the West Gallery carries an inscription recording that it was built in 1704 at the expense of Sir Philip Gell of Hopton. The gallery offers a rare glimpse of early 18th century craftsmanship. The church has also revealed secrets from even earlier times. In 1971, a gravedigger uncovered the skeletons of a man, a woman and a child thought to be of Anglo-Saxon origin. That discovery suggested that worship may have taken place here long before the medieval building was constructed. Architecturally, the church is built of limestone ashlar with gritstone dressings. The building is a single rectangular space with a south porch and a north vestry. It has a 19th century king post roof, some early 20th century stained glass, and a stone font with an octagonal cover. On the green in front of the church we can see a village cross, another Grade II listed structure. It dates from the 14th or 15th century, making it one of the oldest surviving features in Carsington today. The cross is made of gritstone and stands on a circular plinth with a three-stepped base. Above that rises the remains of a polygonal shaft, weathered by centuries of wind and rain. The head of the cross is missing, but the surviving stonework still shows excellent medieval craftsmanship. Village crosses like this were common across Derbyshire and often marked important meeting places. Carsington's cross would have been a landmark for travellers moving between Wirksworth, Brassington and Hopton. The rest of the village green is simply lovely. The green has long acted as an open space beside the main road linking Carsington with Hopton. Today it offers a peaceful place to pause before exploring the rest of the village. The cottages around it follow the same layout seen in early maps of the village. They give the green a timeless feel that visitors often enjoy. It also helps to show how small rural settlements in the Derbyshire Dales developed over time. The green is a good starting point for walks towards Carsington pasture. Walkers often gather here before heading up the steps towards the pasture paths. The open space helps visitors orient themselves whilst enjoying views of the limestone cottages. Well, there can be no denying that the centre of Carsington is a very picturesque place, and actually in the sort of snow covering that it's kind of had over the last couple of days, it actually looks quite pretty, doesn't it? Well, let's see what life's like a bit further up the road. If you go this way, screen's a bit mucky there, sorry about the rain on the lens. There's a pub and it's called the Miners' Arms. Anyone fancy a pint? Another reason to gather in this part of Carsington would be the Miners' Arms. This is yet another Grade 2 listed building, which was first given that status in 1967 for its architectural and historic interest. It stands on Bottom Lane. The building dates from the 18th century with later 19th and 20th century additions. The pub is built from coursed limestone rubble with a south facade of squared gritstone and a plain tile roof. These are, of course, the traditional building materials of the Derbyshire Dales. Seeing as Carsington was once a major centre for lead mining, how the pub's name came about is pretty obvious. Miners working in the hills around Carsington and Brassington would have known this building well. Today it's a family-run free house offering food, local ales and a warm welcome. The building's listing notes features such as a 3-light mullion window, iron glazing bars and a stairwell window reaching the eaves. The mix of historic features and modern comforts gives the pub quite a unique charm. Carsington-Hopton Primary School is close by. Guess what? This is also a Grade 2 listed building, again first listed in 1967. The school was originally built in 1726, making it one of the oldest buildings in the Derbyshire Dales that's used for education. The school was founded by Mrs. Temperance Gell of Hopton, who paid for the building and set out its purpose in a carved stone plaque. The plaque states that the school was built for 20 poor children of Hopton and Carsington to learn to read, write and other proper works, whatever they are. Architecturally, the school is built of limestone ashlar with gritstone dressings and has a hipped, graduated slate roof. The building is single-storey and T-shaped, with tall, mullioned and transomed windows. These features make it a fine example of early 18th century design. The school has been restored several times, including major work in the 20th century. Its position near the church and the pub helps to show how central it's always been to village life. The school continues to serve local children today, linking the past and the present together seamlessly. Okay, next job is to get ourselves onto a field here via a footpath. There's some actual sheep in this field, so hopefully they don't mind me invading their personal space just for a few moments. There is a footpath here, as you can see, crosses this field. Look how lumpy and bumpy this field is. There's a reason for that. It's because those are earthworks. Even though most of Carsington is clustered around the green, we can form a circular walk here. To do that, we have to cross some earthworks on a footpath as we head towards the rectory. Now, what could these have possibly been? Well, according to the Derbyshire Historic Environment Record, these earthworks include medieval and early post-medieval building platforms that once formed part of a larger settlement. Aerial photographs taken in 1989 show the earthworks clearly, confirming their shape and layout. These earthworks are not alone in Carsington. To the northwest of the village, at least 6 well-defined platforms overlook the lane leading out of the village. Their position suggests they were once part of a busy roadside cluster of homes. Today, this area is quiet and grassy, but the shapes in the ground tell a story of families who lived and worked here long ago. Many rural settlements in Derbyshire shrank after the medieval period, and Carsington's earthworks are a clear example of that pattern. So here we are at the rectory. Carsington has had a rectory for many centuries, serving St Margaret's Church, of course. The village's history of lead mining and farming meant the rector played an important role in local life. It would have been a place where villagers sought guidance and support. One of the most notable rectors of Carsington was John Oldfield, a nonconformist minister who was ejected in 1662 under the Act of Uniformity. Another rector, Ellis Farnworth, served in the 18th century and became known for translating the works of Machiavelli. Okay, so between the rectory and where we're going to finish, it's kind of a bit of nothingness. I say a bit of nothingness, but if you do look up here, there is a good view here into Carsington pastures at the top of the hill over there. Now, at the end of this week, we will be on or close to Carsington pastures. I'm hoping this misty, foggy horribleness has lifted by then. We'll see. Couple hours time. Now our next job is to go away from that hill and down into the valley. We're off to a place called Knockerdown because that is also within Carsington's boundaries. So that's Carsington Village, but of course we will be mentioning the name all week. We're going to do a complete circuit of Carsington Water before this week is over, and the first task as part of that is to make our way to Knockerdown. Knockerdown is a hamlet which lies just south of Carsington, but it's still within the parish boundaries. Knockerdown has some pretty cool features, including a triangular boundary stone on the B5035, marking the borders of Carsington and Hognaston. The Gell family played a major role in shaping Knockerdown as well as a lot of Carsington and Hopton. They had a hand in establishing the one landmark that Knockerdown is known for more than any other, and that would be the Knockerdown Inn. The Knockerdown Inn stands beside the B5035 near Carsington Water, and it served travellers since 1838 when it first opened as the Greyhound. It was built by the Gell family, and the pub's name even comes from the family's crest, which featured a dog. The inn has changed hands many times, including a period under Marston's Brewery from 1931. In 2023, the Hopton Hall estate bought it back and began restoring it to celebrate its long history. The return to its original estate ownership is a rare story in Derbyshire. The pub's large beer garden offers views across the countryside, making it a perfect place to rest on a sunny day. It's especially popular with families and campers. Inside, the pub offers a bright dining room with views over the water and a cosy area with a log burner for colder days. The site has also been the focus of several planning proposals. In 2024, new owners applied to expand the car park from 25 to 51 spaces to help with visitor numbers. Earlier plans for motoring facilities and holiday lodges were rejected after local objections. In all, it's a good pub to call into if you're wandering around Carsington Water. It's not up to me to sell the place to you, but consider this, won't you? If you ever forget how to pronounce the name Knockerdown, by the way, just remember it's easier to say after you've had a pint. As we leave Knockerdown, and by extension Carsington Parish behind, it's easy to see why this area has such a long and interesting story. Not many villages can boast both medieval earthworks and Ice Age wildlife in the same landscape. Carsington packs a lot of history into a very peaceful place. Add in the calm village green, the medieval cross, the cosy Miner's Arms, and the quiet paths leading up to Carsington pasture, and you have a wonderful chunk of the Derbyshire Dales. There is also the reservoir, but we've yet to see that. You won't have to wait long though.
field laws were known, and the miners' arms kept burning for the men who worked the stone. State Margaret stands in stillness with her sun gal on the wall. Reedified in troubled times, she has weathered every squall. Saxon bones beneath her chapel, gill inscriptions overhead. Every stone a whispered chapter of the lives the village led. Carsington, old Carsington, where the past still walks the lane. From the lid-scarred hills to the village green, your stories still remain. Carsington, proud Carsington, where the centuries gather round. In the dales your voice keeps rising from the roads beneath the ground. The schoolhouse was built for the children of the Dale, 24 to read and write, to shape a different trail. Million windows, slate how roof, a beacon through the years. Still it binds the parish stories with the laughter that it hears. Down the road to Knocker Down, where the boundary stone stands clear. The greyhound rose in 38 to serve the travellers here. The gals once had its heartbeat, and the inn still holds the sound of the long Carsington story, where the hills fold gently round. From the pasture caves and Roman fires to the water shining blue, every age has left its footprints in the paths that led to you. Carsington, old Carsington, where the past still lurks the lane. From the lead-scarred hills to the village green, your stories still remain. Carsington, proud Carsington, where the centuries gather round. In the dales your voice keeps rising from the roots beneath the ground. Carsington, old Carsington, where the past still walks the lane. From the lead-scarred hills to the village green, your stories still remain. Your stories still remain. Your stories still remain. Carsington, old Carsington, where the past still walks the lane.
Hello folks, welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales for episode number 2 this week. Now yesterday we saw the parish of Carsington, and one thing that we definitely didn't see in that episode was Carsington Water. And the reason for that is because if you want to come to Carsington Water, which is the reservoir you can see behind me there, you're better off coming to this parish instead, because this is the one that's got the visitor centre. It's the one which has the access to Stones Island, which we're about to walk onto, and it's also the one that has a sailing club, which is sort of over there. This is the parish of Hognaston. Hognaston, Hopger's farm. Today in the Derbyshire Dales we come to Hognaston, which sits on the side of a valley that leads towards the River Dove. Its hillside setting gives visitors lovely views across fields, farms and the edge of Carsington Water, if you know where to go. The name Hognaston is thought to come from Old English, meaning the farm or settlement of Hopger's people, linking it to early Saxon settlers. The village layout, with its narrow lanes and stone buildings, still reflects its early medieval origins. Hognaston was already a settled place long before the Norman conquest. The area around the village shows signs of ancient activity, with Roman roads and farm sites recorded in the wider Wirksworth district. By the time of the Domesday Book, Hognaston was part of the royal lands linked to Wirksworth and the surrounding hundred. Hognaston then developed as a small agricultural parish with strong ties to the church. The manor of Hognaston was later held by the Gell family, who owned Hopton Hall near Carsington. Their influence shaped the area's farms, boundaries and local traditions. One of the most important landmarks in the village today is St Bartholomew's Church. The Norman doorway is especially famous, decorated with carvings of a bishop, a lamb with a cross, 2 fishes, a hog and other animals. The church also contains Derbyshire's oldest church bell, dating from the early 13th century, and that makes it one of the oldest and rarest surviving items in the county. The village hall is another interesting landmark. It was built in 1982 using stone from houses that were submerged when Carsington Water was created. Hognaston's position near Carsington Water means the parish has become a popular place for walkers and cyclists. The reservoir lies just a short distance away and offers sailing, birdwatching and long circular walks. In fact, most of the visitors to Carsington Water are actually heading towards the parish of Hognaston without even knowing it, because this is the place that has its main facilities. Hognaston also has a pub, the Red Lion Inn, which has served locals and travellers for generations. The pub is a popular stop for walkers exploring the reservoir or the hills around the village. Hognaston also includes a play area and several open green spaces. In all, Hognaston remains a small but lively parish with a strong sense of place. Its ancient church, historic cottages, links to the Gell family and views over Carsington Water make it a rewarding destination. Let's see what it looks like in this episode. There are 5 parishes which touch the edges of Carsington Water, and by far Hognaston is the best of them all to view it. This is one of the largest reservoirs in England, holding over 35,000 megalitres of water. It's managed by Severn Trent Water and reaches a depth of 33 metres. It's a major attraction in the Derbyshire Dales. Planning for the reservoir began in the 1960s when engineers looked for ways to increase water supplies for Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire. Construction started in 1979 with the aim of storing water from the River Derwent. Carsington Water takes water from the Derwent at Ambergate through a 10.5-kilometre tunnel, and via an aqueduct it ends up here. Water is pumped into the reservoir during the winter and released back into the river in summer. In 1984, the original dam at Carsington suffered a partial collapse before the reservoir was filled. The entire dam had to be removed and rebuilt from scratch. Work started on that in 1989, and the new dam was completed safely. The dramatic event, though, is still remembered locally. The finished reservoir was officially opened by Queen Elizabeth II in 1992. Only 2 farms had to be demolished to create the lake, and the modest total of just 11 people were displaced. Although the project caused disruption, many residents regard this as a major asset to the area. Carsington Water covers land once known as the Henmore Valley, which was described as boggy by local farmers. The valley's shape made it suitable for flooding. When it was flooded, more trees were planted around the reservoir than were removed during its construction. The reservoir is England's 9th largest by capacity. Its surface area is so large that 700 football pitches could fit onto it. Those impressive figures help explain why the site attracts walkers, cyclists and birdwatchers. The wide open water also makes it ideal for sailing and windsurfing. Carsington Water has become a major centre for outdoor activities. Visitors can enjoy walking routes of 1 mile, 3 miles and 8 miles around the reservoir. There's a circular track which allows you to completely circumnavigate it. The reservoir has 2 islands which help create sheltered water for wildlife. Bird hides around the shoreline allow visitors to watch species such as oyster catchers, grebes and wintering ducks. The mix of open water and woodland makes the site rich in wildlife. When it was built, Carsington Water also brought major changes to local roads. A new bypass was built to take traffic away from Carsington, Hopton and Hognaston. This made the villages quieter and safer. Many locals regard the bypass as one of the best outcomes of the entire project. So this is the Carsington Water Visitor Centre, which stands on the western shore of the reservoir and is the main arrival point for most visitors. The centre includes a cafe with panoramic views of the water. Many visitors enjoy sitting on the balcony to watch sailing boats. Inside the building is an interactive exhibition created by Severn Trent Water. It explains where water comes from, how much people use, and how the reservoir actually works. The displays are designed for all ages and include hands-on features. School groups often visit to learn about it all. The visitor centre also contains shops including an RSPB outlet and an outdoor equipment store. Those shops sell birdwatching guides, gifts and walking gear. Here we're on Stones Island. It's one of the most distinctive features of Carsington Water and sits close to the visitor centre. It's connected to the shore by a short causeway, making it easy to reach on foot. The island is actually artificial, created during the reservoir's construction. It contains a series of stone sculptures arranged in a circular pattern. They were created by local artists to celebrate the landscape. Each stone is carved with patterns inspired by water, wildlife and local history. Stones Island offers some of the best views across the reservoir. From the edge, visitors can see a sailing club, the dam, and the woodland shoreline. The open water often attracts gulls, ducks, and geese, and so the island is a good spot for birdwatching too. It's also used for outdoor activities. It's hosted music performances, charity walks, and seasonal celebrations. Its open, grassy space makes it suitable for any kind of gathering, really. So let's talk a bit about Carsington Sailing Club. It was founded soon after the reservoir opened in 1992. The clubhouse overlooks the lake and has a large balcony with wide views across the water. The club's position makes it one of the most scenic sailing venues anywhere in Derbyshire. The club is an RYA recognised training centre, offering courses for beginners and advanced sailors throughout the year. Training includes dinghy sailing, keelboat sailing and powerboat skills. Courses run from Wednesday to Sunday for most of the year. Racing takes place every weekend, with cruiser fleets on Saturdays and dinghy fleets on Sundays. Boats include catamarans, asymmetric dinghies and traditional classics. These events attract sailors from across the UK. The clubhouse includes a bar, galley and large seating area with panoramic views of the reservoir. The club welcomes windsurfers, wingfoilers and youth sailors, offering dedicated sessions for younger members. Now, as regards parking here at Carsington Water, you get the first 15 minutes free, and after that you have to pay. Now, I've been here longer than 15 minutes, so let's pay for the parking, shall we? So, card pay on exit terminal. Are you leaving now? Yes, I am. Please choose the correct vehicle type. Car. Enter me car reg. So, EF14 FPG. Proceed. Searching for me. There we are. Fee due, £2. There we go. Thought it wasn't going to accept it there, to be honest with you, but there we are. Now we're driving towards Hognaston and we're entering a landscape shaped by over 2,000 years of lead mining in the Peak District. The wider area was one of the richest ore fields in Britain, worked from Roman times to the 19th century. Hognaston lies only a short distance from the Roman site. During the medieval period, packhorse trains carried lead from Wirksworth through Hognaston. Those routes linked the mines with markets across England. Today's quieter lanes once echoed with the sound of hooves and heavy loads. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Derbyshire's lead industry reached its peak, with over 25,000 mine shafts recorded across the county. Hognaston had at least one mine of its own. Look to the right here as we drive into the village and you'll see a huge area that appears overgrown. That was a lead mine, but it's now long disused. Many other shafts and hillocks survive in the fields around Hognaston. Okay, so here we are then in Hognaston village. Now, you may have noticed from the footage there driving into the village, it's a long downward slope, and I've parked right at the very far end of the village and walked all the way back up to the top. up a big hill to reach my start point. That's the problem with linear villages, you can't really make a circle out of them, so I didn't really have much choice in this case. So, it should be easy going to get back down to where the car is parked. Just go straight back down the hill. Let's head for the Red Lion. Stop number 1 in the village itself is the Red Lion Inn, a 17th century building standing on Main Street. It overlooks the hills above Carsington Water, and it served travellers for hundreds of years. The inn is one of the oldest surviving buildings in Hognaston, in fact. The pub is family run and offers food, guest beers, and a warm welcome throughout the year. It's been praised by Derbyshire Life, the Daily Mail, and the Observer for its cooking. The menu changes daily and uses fresh local produce. The Red Lion has also welcomed famous guests, including John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bassett in its time. Their visit is still mentioned with pride by its owners, and it's something to boast about. After all, the inn offers superior ensuite rooms for overnight stays. St Bartholomew's Church stands at the centre of Hognaston and dates back to the 12th century. The church is Grade 2 listed and includes a Norman doorway carved with a bishop, a lamb, 2 fishes and a hog. This carving is thought to show the Agnus Dei, a symbol of Christ. The doorway includes a Romanesque beak-headed moulding and dog-tooth patterning, which experts say were carved by an itinerant mason in the late 1100s. The tympanum itself may have been carved by a village blacksmith. It's one of the most memorable in Derbyshire. The church tower dates from the 13th century and includes 3 lancet windows and shallow buttresses. The upper floors were rebuilt in the late 15th century using different stonework from the lower section. The tower stands high above the lane and it's easy to spot. Inside the church is Derbyshire's oldest surviving church bell. The font is also Norman and has a tub-shaped design typical of the 12th century. These early features help show how long worship has taken place here. The church was restored between 1879 and 1881 by the architect F.J. Robinson, who rebuilt much of the exterior in Triassic sandstone. The nave and the chancel were updated, but the Norman doorway and medieval tower were carefully kept. For more than 700 years, villagers have been buried in the churchyard, as the church became a parochial chapelry by the end of the 13th century. Before that, people had to travel to Ashbourne for baptisms, marriages and burials. Now, I suppose it's hard to define the centre of a linear village, but if Hognaston does have a centre, I would say it's this area here. There's a little green with something on it, something circular. I'll have a look at that in a moment. There's a bus stop. That's got the parish notice board in it. I'll leave a card in there in a moment. And then you got this big house which overlooks it all with some blocked up windows in the middle. Hognaston Village Hall is one of the most unusual halls in Derbyshire because it was built in 1982 using stone from houses that were submerged by Carsington water. The stones came from the long-lost hamlet of Hopton-cum-Carsington. How about that for fascinating? The hall, though, is used like any other. Events, meetings and local activities take place here. Its stone walls match the older buildings around it, and it sits on land that once formed part of the old village layout. The building includes a main hall, a kitchen and an outdoor space. Hognaston Village Hall remains a valued feature of the parish. Its link to the reservoir's lost homes gives it a story unlike any other hall in the Dales. Visitors enjoy learning how the village adapted to the changes brought by Carsington water. It's a quiet but important stop on any walking trail. Hognaston's old school stands close to the church and served the village for many decades. It appears in 19th century records as part of a parish described back then as wholly agricultural. As such, the school helped educate children from farming families. The building dates from the 19th century when many rural schools were built across Derbyshire. It was constructed from local limestone, matching the cottages and farmhouses around it. This gives the school a traditional look that fits well with the rest of the village. The school once taught children from both Hognaston and the village of Atlow. Inside, the school would have had a single classroom with a stove for heating. Although the building is no longer used for teaching, its shape and windows still hint at its past. The school closed when modern education moved to larger buildings in nearby villages. Many rural schools like this one closed in the mid-20th century. The old school at Hognaston survived, though, because of its solid stone construction. It's now privately owned. Hognaston once had 2 Methodist chapels, and that shows how active religious life was out here. The best recorded building is the primitive Methodist chapel, first erected in 1827. It stood on Stone Pit Lane, and it still does today, albeit as a private home. The primitive Methodist chapel was rebuilt in 1898. The rebuilding was carried out by Samuel Hardy, a village stonemason, and the new chapel could seat 250 people. A Sunday school was added at the same time, costing a total of £700. The 1898 building has a distinctive date stone showing the numbers arranged as 988, with the central 8 carved larger than the others. This unusual design is still visible on the front wall. Old postcards from 1907 and 1914 show the chapel in use with groups of worshippers gathered outside. The chapel finally closed for worship in the 1980s. It was later converted into a private residence, but the original stonework and doorway remain today. 2 local families, the Websters and the Bembridges, were especially active in the chapel's history. Hognaston also had a Wesleyan Methodist chapel. Although the Wesleyan building is less well documented than the primitive chapel, it served the village during the same period. And speaking of the Wesleyan chapel, that is where I've parked my car. So from the chapel you've just seen, to get to the Wesleyan chapel, all you need to do is keep following the road. And you can see down there, you can see the Wesleyan chapel and my car parked outside it. So we'll keep the camera rolling in this little bit, show you what else is down here, this southern section of the village. It's otherwise mainly housing, as you can see. A few mix of styles. There's a brick building there, not many of those in the Derbyshire Dales. Not many of those at all. That's Pin End Cottage apparently. Most Derbyshire houses look more like that, don't they? Or at least I find they do. Oh look, more brick. More brick. Oakton Cottage. It's almost like being in Nottinghamshire, isn't it? Not quite. This is quite interesting as well. Look at this. This street here is called Old Bakery Close. So maybe at one time there was a bakery that was right there. As you can see, there's a playground in there now at the back of that. That's a proper change of use, is that? And here we go, look, there's the Wesleyan Chapel as we reach the end of Hognaston Village. So, time to drive out of this one and head on to the next one here in the Derbyshire Dales. As we leave Hognaston behind and continue on our journey around Carsington Water, you have to sit back in awe of how much is packed into this village. It has a 12th century church, 2 former Methodist chapels and a village hall built from stone rescued before Carsington Water arrived. Not many villages can claim they have a building made from houses now sitting under a reservoir, but there you go. Hognaston certainly has its quirks. It holds Derbyshire's oldest church bell and has a pub once visited by John F. Kennedy Jr. Even the sheep here seem to walk with purpose, though they still refuse to give any directions. As the road rises and the fields open out, it's a good moment to look back and enjoy the charm of Hognaston. It may be small, but it has a big personality.
Where the hills roll down to the wide blue shine, Hognaston watches from its rising spine. Fields meet the water where Scowbrook once flowed, a valley once boggy, now a place that glows. Sailing boats drifting as the breezes play, two islands guarding the silver bay. Hognaston, rising where the hills unfold. Hognaston, holding its memories in stone and gold. Hognaston, from water to church to the hall so strong. Hognaston, it's the very place that inspires this song. Stone art standing from an older age, carvings of creatures on a Norman stage, a bishop, a lamb, and a hog carved bowl, a bell still ringing with a voice so old, tower built strong with its ancient grace, holding the heart of this steadfast place. Hognaston, rising where the hills unfold. Hognaston, holding its memories in stone and gold. Hognaston, from water to church to the hall so strong. Hognaston, it's the very place that inspires this song. Built from the homes that the water claimed, blocks from a hamlet that once was named, set by the fields where the footpaths meet, a hall that gathers the village beat, raised from the past with a steady hand, rooted in pride where the people stand. Tracks once echoed with the weight of ore, hack horses moving from shore to shore, hillocks and hollows in the fields remain, marking the toil of an older domain. Hognaston, rising where the hills unfold. Hognaston, holding its memories in stone and gold. Hognaston, from water
Hello folks, welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales once again. Now, we're going to begin this one with a question. How many of you are old enough to remember old money, pre-decimalisation? Well, if you lived in this place, you may not have needed to be as old as you might think. We changed to new money in 1971, but there's a place in this village which held out for as long as it could with the old currency. It's the Barley Mow Inn, and you can find it in Kirk Ireton. Kirk Ireton, Irishman's enclosure with a church. Kirk Ireton is a hillside parish sitting 700 feet above sea level on the slope above Carsington Water. Kirk means church, whilst the name Ireton comes from Saxon Ireton, meaning Irishman's enclosure. The area around Kirk Ireton shows signs of very early settlement, with the village dating back to at least the Bronze Age. The Worksworth Hundred, where the parish sits, contains Roman roads and ancient field systems. During the medieval period, Kirk Ireton developed as a farming parish. The village layout, with its narrow lanes and stone buildings, still follows its medieval pattern. Many of the oldest houses here date from the 17th century and are built from locally quarried sandstone. After the Second World War, the number of working farms here dropped from over 30 to around 6 within 40 years. Families such as the Fords, Matkins, Rowlands, Walkers and Wards have farmed the area for generations. Many old barns have since been converted into homes. One of the most important landmarks here is Holy Trinity Church, a Norman building with arcades dating from the 12th century. The church is famous for its wedding custom known as roping, where children block the road with a rope until the groom pays a silver toll. The village is also known for the Barley Mow, one of the oldest pubs in Derbyshire. The building dates from the 17th century and was one of the last pubs in Britain to accept decimal money in 1971. The landlady, Lillian Ford, refused to use the new currency at first. Kirk Ireton once had 4 other pubs: the Wheatsheaf, the Old Bull's Head, the Windmill and the Gate. Although these have now closed, their buildings remain as part of the village's character. Otherwise, the narrow lanes and stone cottages give the place a timeless feel. The parish also has a primitive Methodist chapel, a church school built in 1882, and several historic farms. These buildings show how active village life once was, and many of those still stand today. The village shop is another interesting feature. The post office closed in 2008, but the building later reopened as a community-run shop. The premises were once stables, and the old hay racks remain above the shelving. This gives the shop a unique charm that visitors enjoy. Kirk Ireton has also been home to some notable people. The scholar Anthony Blackwall was born here. The landscape artist George Turner lived at the Barley Mow, and his paintings of Derbyshire scenes are still admired today. Let's go and admire it all ourselves. Let's get things going with a drive into Kirk Ireton through an area known as Blackwall. Blackwall sits on the southern side of a lane leading into the main village and is made up of a few scattered properties. One of those is Blackwall House, a Grade 2 listed building dating from before 1623. The house was built by the Blackwall family, who gave the area its name. It was remodelled in 1736, and that fact is confirmed by a date carved above the basement door on the western side. The south facade was refaced in the late 18th and early 19th centuries and fitted with 4 Venetian windows. The house has an irregular plan otherwise, although it's basically a square with east and west wings. The building includes mullioned windows from the 17th century, some of which are now blocked but still visible. An archaeological watching brief in 2019 uncovered an earlier well building on the west side of the house. This discovery hints at even older activity on the site. It suggests that Blackwall may have been an important homestead long before the surviving house was built. Today, Blackwall is a quiet, scenic part of the parish with views across farmland and the hills above Carsington Water. The combination of old stonework, rural views and centuries of history makes Blackwall an interesting area to pass through before you hit Kirk Ireton itself. Okay, so we've made it into Kirk Ireton village, and this is going to be a nice circular walk. It's one of those villages which is going to be a pleasure, shall we say, to walk around. We're going to begin with a shop which is kind of over there. The The Stable shop is our start point in the village. Standing on Main Street, the shop sits inside a building that was originally used as a stables. The old hay racks from the stables are still visible above the shelving, and that gives the shop a unique character. The shop is an independent village store, offering local produce and everyday essentials. It stocks groceries, household items and treats from Derbyshire suppliers. Visitors often enjoy browsing the shelves for local jams, cheeses and baked goods. The building once housed the village post office, which closed in 2008 before reopening as a shop. The conversion kept the original stable features, including stone walls and timber fittings. This makes the shop feel full of heritage. The Stable shop is a friendly and practical place for both locals and visitors. Its mix of local produce, its historic setting and welcoming atmosphere makes it a highlight of Kirk Ireton. Many walkers say it feels like stepping into a piece of living history when they do. This is the Barley Mow Inn, a Grade 2 listed building dating from around 1683, with parts possibly from around 1600. It stands on Main Street and it's one of the oldest buildings in the village. The pub has a T-plan layout with mullioned windows and gritstone walls. Inside, the pub retains exposed beams, quarry tiles and wooden settles. Camera describes it as an excellent unspoilt pub with a nationally important historic interior. In and of itself, it's a pretty famous pub, but it's also well known for a piece of local lore. The Barley Mow became famous nationwide because of Lillian Ford, the landlady who refused to adopt decimal currency in 1971. Ford continued to use old money for as long as possible because of her distrust for the new system. Her story even appeared in newspapers and on national television. Lillian Ford lived to the age of 89 and spent her entire life in the building. After her death in 1976, the pub's contents were sold except for fixed seating. The new landlady, Mary Short, bought furnishings that matched the historic interior, helping preserve the pub's traditional feel. The Barley Mow still serves beer by gravity from casks behind the bar, a rare method in modern pubs. Yeah, it's a brilliant tale, that, the landlady holding out for as long as possible with the old money. I wonder what sort of changes it made back then, you know, when we swapped from old money to new money. Was it any better? Do you think it's any better if you can remember old money? What do you think? Put your answers to that question in the comments below. Okay, so next we have a bit of residential housing to see between here and the next landmark. This is the main street here in Kirk Ireton. We're going to wander down this and see where it takes us. The village field sits on the edge of Kirk Ireton and forms part of the parish's long farming history. The village has been agricultural for centuries, with over 30 working farms after the Second World War. By the 1980s, that number had fallen to around 6. Field names and boundaries around Kirk Ireton were recorded in an 18th century survey held by the Derbyshire Record Office. Many of the names survive in local memory. Visitors walking the field edges can still see the old patterns in the landscape. The field's position near the church suggests it may once have been glebeland. Today it's used for village events, outdoor activities and seasonal celebrations. It offers wide views across the hills above Carsington Water too. Holy Trinity Church is a Grade 1 listed building dating from the 12th century. It stands proudly above the village on Wirksworth Road, and it's one of the oldest churches in the Derbyshire Dales. The building includes a west tower, a nave, aisles and a clerestory. The church contains clear remains of its Norman origins, including the earliest arcades on the south and north sides. It was damaged by a violent tornado in 1811, which also unroofed houses in the village. That dramatic event is still remembered in local history records. Inside the church is a pipe organ built by Henry Willis in 1859. The church seats around 300 people, making it surprisingly large for a small rural parish. The churchyard offers peaceful views across the hills above Carsington Water too. One of the most charming traditions linked to this church is something called roping. That takes place at a wedding, and it sees village children literally block the road with a rope until the groom pays a silver toll. That custom still takes place today, and it delights visitors. Ireton's village hall is next. This stands near the centre of the village and sits around 700 feet above sea level, matching the average height of the village. The stone walls naturally fit with the 17th century buildings around it. The hall is often used during Wakes Week, which begins on Trinity Sunday and includes a procession led by a brass band. Events continue throughout the week, ending with a full day of activities on a Saturday. The hall provides indoor space for displays, meetings and refreshments. Just being as careful as I can around the church there because there's a funeral service that's currently going on. So yeah, I haven't quite got as close to the church as I would have liked, but of course you have to be respectful. We're now going to pass the front of the church and head back along the main street in the other direction now. We're heading for the school, and then we'll dive down into the residential area that's kind of to the south of all of this that you've so far seen. Ireton C of E Primary School stands on Main Street and serves children aged 4 to 11. It has a capacity of 56 pupils. It's part of the Village Federation, a group of small rural schools across Derbyshire. Because it sits close to Holy Trinity Church, it's linked to the parish's long religious history. Records show that Kirk Ireton has had church-linked education since 1686, when John Slater endowed a school in the village. This school was built in 1882. The school building stands in the oldest part of the village, where many houses date from the 17th century. That gives the school a charming setting among stone cottages and narrow lanes. Its mixed-age classes are typical of rural Derbyshire schools too. There are two chapels in Kirk Ireton, and they're literally across the road from each other. The first Methodist chapel was built in 1836, making it one of the earliest nonconformist buildings in Derbyshire. It stands on Coffin Lane, a short walk from the village centre. The chapel is small and simple, built from local stone. It was the original home of the Primitive Methodists, a congregation which grew rapidly in the 19th century. The chapel served the many farming families who lived across these hills. The building has changed very little since the 19th century, but it was replaced by a much bigger one when the congregation got far too large for it. Few Derbyshire parishes have two Methodist chapels that face each other, but that's the case here in Kirk Ireton. The second Methodist chapel in Kirk Ireton was built in 1876 to replace the first. This chapel included a Sunday school and was built in a more ambitious style than the earlier building. It did the same job as the first one though. It served the Primitive Methodist movement. The building remained in use until the 1980s, when the congregation declined and the chapel closed. After closure, it was converted into a private house. The stone walls and tall windows remain visible from the road. Here's the funniest bit about all of this. Seeing as the congregation declined, now it's the older 1836 chapel that continues to host worship, whilst the 1876 building has taken on a new life. Now, though, it serves all Methodists instead of just the Primitives. Okay, so opposite the old chapel there's a footpath, and if you follow that you go into some residential areas. We'll go through them to finish off. Between the two you've got this little park, which is quite nice, isn't it? How about that for lovely? I imagine it's better in the summer though, when the fog isn't around and it's not freezing cold. So let's head through these houses then, and we'll return to the stable shop where we began. I wonder if they sell hot chocolate, because right now I could use one. As we leave Kirk Ireton behind and head north, it's easy to see why this hillside parish feels so special. It has a 12th century church, 2 Methodist chapels from 1836 and 1876, and a pub famous for refusing decimal money. Now that's character for you. The barley mow holding out against modern currency isn't the only wonderful thing about Kirk Ireton. The village still roping wedding cars for a toll, and the shop still having hay racks above the shelves are also both extremely unusual. Kirk Ireton may be small, but it has a big personality.
Where the church road bends by the old stone Two chapels facing each other across the road. One old, one new, where faithful hopes flowed. Voices once gathered in both with pride. Fate carried on from side to side. Kirk, Ireton, where the old meets the new. Stone on stone with a Derbyshire view. From Blackwall's fields to the shop with its rocks. A village with a heart that never looks back.
Hello folks, welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales for episode number 4 this week. Now this is the one where the weather may cause me a massive problem, because as you know, all week I've been walking around in what is effectively freezing fog. Now the thing is, freezing fog's alright if you're looking at things that are close to you, but later on in this episode I need to be seeing something further away, which the camera will not pick up at distance, so you just have to imagine it's there if you can't see it. That is going to come after we've explored this village, which won't take us very long, because in the time I've been talking to you here, I've effectively walked through it, believe it or not. This is a really, really small place, and it goes by the name of Callow. Callow, bare corner of land. Today on TVI we come to another tiny one out here in the Derbyshire Dales. This is Callow, which sits in the hills overlooking Carsington Water on its eastern side. This should not be confused with Callow in northeast Derbyshire. That's a very urban parish. This is extremely rural. The name Callow comes from Old English and means bare hill or bare corner of land, a meaning supported by similar entries such as Caldor in the Domesday Book. The name suits the open slopes and exposed ridges around here rather well. It was listed as a bailiwick of Wirksworth, meaning it was a supporting farm for a larger royal estate. The Domesday Link also ties it to the important lead mining centre at Wirksworth, and the area around Callow shows signs of very early lead mining activity. Callow became part of the Duchy of Lancaster in the Middle Ages, placing it under control of powerful lords linked to the crown. In the 14th century, Callow was at the centre of a dramatic feud between the Duchy of Lancaster and the Statham family of Morley. Records show that the Stathams seized 30 mares, 30 oxen, 30 cows and 20 bullocks from Callow and nearby lands. They even dug into John of Gaunt's mines and damaged his property. This colourful story adds a bit of excitement to the parish's past. The feud continued for years, and in 1381 Philip of Oakover, one of John of Gaunt's knights, led a counterattack on the Statham's lands at Callow. Visitors today would never guess that such a quiet place once saw so much conflict. One of the most important landmarks here is Callow Hall, a moated site with a 17th century gritstone farmhouse built over a 13th century undercroft. Although the hall is private, its history makes it a key feature of Callow and it shouldn't be ignored. Callow also has links to prehistoric discoveries. In 1822, lead miners sinking a shaft at Dream Mine on Stainsborough Hill found the remains of a prehistoric woolly rhinoceros. The extraordinary find shows how ancient this landscape really is. Today, Callow remains a peaceful place with open views across the Derbyshire Dales. Its small size and scattered farms make it a perfect place for walkers and some lovely photography. Callow's closeness to Carsington Water makes it a good base for exploring the reservoir and its trails too. Although small, Callow has a rich story stretching from the Domesday Book to medieval feuds and prehistoric discoveries. Its moated hall, quiet lanes and open fields make it a hidden gem in the Derbyshire Dales. Let's see if it really is. As you drive towards Callow from Kirk Ireton, the landscape opens into wide fields and gentle hills that form part of the glorious Derbyshire Dales. The land here has been farmed for centuries, giving the valley it sits in a calm, settled feel. Callow means bare hill, and that description definitely suits the open slopes you see as you approach it. The hillsides rise gently towards the edge of a moorland, and the scenery around here feels ancient and untouched. The area around Callow was once part of the Duchy of Lancaster, placing it under the control of powerful medieval lords. In the 14th century, the land became the centre of a feud between the Duchy and the Statham family of Morley. Records describe livestock raids and mine damage worth over £100 in medieval money. It's hard to imagine such drama in today's peaceful fields. In 1381, Philip of Oakover, one of John of Gaunt's knights, responded by laying siege to the Statham's lands. Callow also sits close to some old lead mining ground. Old shafts and spoil heaps still lie hidden in the fields. It was once a hive of industry therefore, but not so much now. Its farmland, woodland edges and a collection of lovely hills above Carsington Water make it a more peaceful place. Okay, so we've made it into Callow then, and here I'm standing at the entrance to Callow Hall Farm. And Callow Hall itself you can see in the distance, but with the fog you might not be able to tell that it's there. There is a house there, sort of there-ish, can you see it? I promise you it's there. That's Callow Hall. We'll talk a bit about that as we walk back through the village. We've just driven in and now we're going to walk back from here to the junction with the road between Hopton and Kirk Ireton. That's effectively Callow village. There's not a lot to this. Callow village itself is really small. It's effectively just one street, recorded as having less than 100 residents at the latest census. It lies just to the southwest of Wirksworth and sits among those fields, stone walls and old farm buildings. It has very few properties, but chief among the ones that are here is Callow Hall, one of the most important landmarks in the parish. It's a moated site with a 17th century gritstone farmhouse that's built over a 13th century undercroft. Its mix of medieval and later architecture makes the hall a rare survival. Although private, it can be viewed from nearby footpaths, and walking those paths you do get the sense that Callow is a place that hasn't changed at all for many a long year. Of course, at the moment you can't see Carsington water because it's too foggy to actually see it. I have found, though, a little water feature. Little trough, look at this. And that's filling with water quite nicely. I imagine horses and things drunk out of that in times gone past. Now, from here, we're heading this way, up this lane here, north towards Hopton. And before we reach the village of Hopton, on the right-hand side, there's a massive mound. It's a big cave. And in that cave, there was once a very important discovery. As you leave Callow and head towards Stainsborough Hill, the landscape begins to show more signs of its old mining activity. The area was once part of the Wirksworth lead mining district, one of the most important in England. The fields here are dotted with hillocks and old shafts. One such shaft is called Dream Mine, and it sits on the hillside above the village to the north. It was first worked by lead miners in the early 19th century, although there could have been some Roman activity up here beforehand. But before even the Romans came along, there was life in these hills, and the miners found that out in a really big way. In 1822, they were sinking a shaft at Dream Mine and unexpectedly broke into a natural cavern. The cavern later became famous as Dream Cave. What they discovered changed the way people understood the geology of the area. You see, the mine lies in some lower Carboniferous limestone, part of the Monsell Dale Formation actually. The rock is known for caves, fissures and mineral veins. The miners were following a productive lead vein when they broke into the cavern. As they cleared loose material, they uncovered the remains of prehistoric animals. Inside the cavern lay the almost complete skeleton of a woolly rhinoceros, a species that lived during the last ice age. The discovery made national news at the time, and even today it remains one of Derbyshire's most important ever finds. The cavern also contained the remains of ox and deer, showing that several large mammals once used the cave or perhaps fell into it. These animals lived in cold, open landscapes, and so their bones helped scientists to understand what Derbyshire looked like thousands of years ago. The skeleton was examined by the geologist William Buckland, who published an account of the discovery in 1823. Buckland's work helped establish the fields of cave paleontology. The bones were later taken to Oxford University, and now they're in the Museum of National History. Modern research has even added more detail. A radiocarbon date of around 43,000 years old was published in 2016 by McFarlane and colleagues. It showed that the rhinoceros lived during a cold period of the last ice age and confirmed the cave was sealed long before any humans arrived. Dream Cave lies at an altitude of 240 metres above sea level, and it's about 15 metres deep. The entrance is a natural fissure in the limestone formed along a mineral vein, which explains why miners encountered it while searching for lead. Today, the cave entrance is on private land, but the story of the discovery is well known. Walkers exploring the hillside can still see signs of old mining around the site, and the tale of the woolly rhinoceros adds a sense of wonder to the landscape. So as I said at the top of this video, you have to imagine here where Dream Mine actually is, where Dream Cave is, because the freezing fog has effectively obscured it. It's somewhere over there, but of course you can't see anything at the minute because it's just basically a whiteout. But yeah, if you come up here to this part of Callow and look in this direction on a nice day, you may see the cave. I promise you it's over there somewhere. Can't do anything about it, can't help the weather. But you know what? I think this freezing fog is actually typical Derbyshire in the winter, so at least you get that sense of realism, don't you? As we leave Callow behind and head towards Hopton, it's amazing to think how much history sits in such a small parish. Callow appears in the Domesday Book. It has a 13th century undercroft and once saw medieval knights raiding livestock. Not bad for a place with less than 100 people. The area also gave us one of Britain's most famous prehistoric finds, a woolly rhinoceros discovered by miners who were probably just hoping for a good day's work. Even the cows in Callow must feel proud of that one. Callow may be small, but it has a huge past, and you certainly can't forget Dream Mine in a hurry. If you do though, you just have to remember it's the only mine in Derbyshire where the miners found something bigger than their pay packet.
Shafts on Stainsborough Hill, miners cut deep through the limestone chill, chasing a vein through the dock and the stone, never expecting the cavern they'd own. Pickaxes rang where the old rocks gave, and daylight fled from the mouth of the cave. Dream Mine open with a breath so cold, revealing secrets the hillside held. Cattle on the high brow, bear on the brow, fields rolling out from the old farm now. Domes day echoes in the wind that blows through brick stone walls where the farmland grows. Cattle with a past that refuses to fade, from Loaded Hall to the tracks they made. A tiny place where the heart's so bold. Callow, where the hills keep hold. Deep in the cavern the miners found bones of a beast that once roamed this ground. Woolly rhinoceros laid in the clay, frozen in time, far from its day. Ox and deer in the limestone bed, shadows of life long vanished and dead. A world of frost in the rock's embrace, hell for an age in that hidden place. Callow on the high ground, bear on the brow, fields rolling out from the old farm now. Domes day echoes in the wind that blows through gritstone walls where the farmland grows. Callow with a past that refuses to fade, from Loaded Hall to the tracks they made. A tiny place with a heart so bold. Callow, where the hills keep hold. Callow on the high ground, bear on the brow, fields rolling out from the old farm now. Domes day echoes in the wind that blows through gritstone walls where the farmland grows. Callow with a past that refuses to fade, from Loaded Hall to the tracks they made. A tiny place with a heart so bold. Callow, where the hills keep hold.
Welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales again, folks, for the last time this week. And today we complete our circuit of Carsington water. Now, you may remember in the Carsington episode on Monday, we talked a bit about the Gell family. Well, here I can show you where they lived. They lived right here. That is a massive house called Hopton Hall. Welcome to the parish of Hopton. Hopton, farm on a hill. Let's tie up the week in the Derbyshire Dales by coming full circle around the lovely Carsington water. Welcome to Hopton, less than half a mile from Carsington, where this week's journey began. This lies at the northern end of the reservoir, giving it lovely views across the water. The name Hopton comes from Old English and it means the farm on the hill or settlement on a ridge. That fits the landscape perfectly, as the village sits on rising ground above the valley. The name appears in medieval records and shows how long people have lived here. Evidence of very early human activity near Hopton includes a Paleolithic Acheulean hand axe, which was discovered in the area and dated to around 200,000 years ago. This remarkable find shows that humans were present here during the warm Aveley interglacial period. During the medieval period, Hopton grew as a farming and yet another lead mining settlement. Hopton's fields and hillsides still show signs of that old mining activity in much the same way as Carsington does. It's almost a cut and paste sort of job here. Hopton has a long and famous connection with the Gell family, who have held land here since 1327. The Gells became one of Derbyshire's most influential families, with major interests in lead mining. Many local landmarks still carry their name. The Gells lived at Hopton Hall, one of the most important buildings in the parish. The hall has medieval origins and later became a grand country house. Today, the gardens of the hall are open to the public at certain times of the year. One of the most famous members of the Gell family was Sir John Gell, a parliamentarian commander during the English Civil War. He played a major role in Derbyshire's military history. His leadership made Hopton well known during the 17th century and adds drama to the village's past. Another notable figure was Sir William Gell, an archaeologist and classical scholar born in Hopton. He became famous for his work on ancient Greece and Pompeii. His drawings and writings are still used by historians today. Hopton lies close to the famous Hopton Incline, part of the old Cromford and High Peak Railway. The incline is one of the steepest adhesion railways ever built. Today it forms part of the High Peak Trail and the Pennine Bridleway. Modern Hopton Village is a dispersed settlement with a mix of old cottages, farmhouses and newer homes. Some buildings are now used as holiday accommodation for visitors exploring the Dales. Its quiet setting makes it ideal for a peaceful break, but this is work to me, so let's go walking. You can't possibly begin a video of Hopton any other place than the wonderful Hopton Hall. This is a Grade 2 listed country house with origins in the 14th century, making it one of the oldest historic homes in the Wirksworth area. It sits between Hopton and Carsington, close to the edge of the Peak District. The hall has been shaped by many centuries of building and rebuilding. The hall was the ancestral seat of the Gell family, who lived here for more than 600 years. The Gells were major landowners and important figures in Derbyshire's lead mining history. Their influence stretched across Wirksworth, Hopton and Carsington and far beyond. Several notable family members were either born or lived in this very house. The Hopton estate once covered 3,700 acres, though much of the land was later sold for the creation of Carsington Water in the 20th century. Today, the grounds only cover around 30 acres, offering peaceful woodland and garden walks. Hopton Hall has welcomed famous guests, including Oliver Cromwell, Mary Queen of Scots and Queen Caroline. Those visits show how important the Gell family once were. Their influence can still be seen in Wirksworth at the Gell Almshouses and Anthony Gell's School. Today, Hopton Hall is known for its Snowdrop Walk in February and its Rose Garden in the summer, both open to the public. The gardens include lakes, woodland paths and colourful borders. These seasonal openings make the hall a popular stop for those who love to explore the Derbyshire Dales. Sir John Gell was born in Hopton on the 22nd of June 1593, making him one of the most famous figures to ever come from the Derbyshire Dales. Gell became a leading parliamentarian commander during the First English Civil War, serving from 1642 to 1646. He was appointed High Sheriff of Derbyshire in 1635 and later became Governor of Derby in 1643. One of Gell's most famous actions was at the Battle of Hopton Heath on the 19th of March 1643, where he commanded around 1,500 parliamentarian troops. The battle was indecisive, but the Royalist commander, the Earl of Northampton, was killed in the fighting. Gell later paraded the Earl's body through Derby, a moment that made him notorious across the Midlands. Gell's troops were known for being energetic, but sometimes difficult to control. Contemporary writers described them as licentious and ungovernable, showing how tense the war years were. Despite this, Gell successfully led sieges at Lichfield, Tutbury Castle and Belvoir Castle. After the war, Gell's fortunes changed. His loyalty was questioned during the Second Civil War, and he was removed from office in 1649. In 1650, he was implicated in a royalist plot and sentenced to life imprisonment, though he was released due to ill health 3 years later. Sir John Gell died in 1671 and was buried at St Mary's Church in Wirksworth, where visitors can still see his resting place today. His family continued to shape the area for generations, but his legacy gives the village a powerful link to one of the most dramatic periods in English history. Sir William Gell was born in Hopton on the 31st of March 1777, making him one of the most famous scholars ever to come from the Dales. Gell studied at Derby School and later at Emmanuel College, Cambridge, where he earned his BA in 1798 and MA in 1804. His education prepared him for a life of travel. In 1801, at the age of just 24, Gell was sent on a diplomatic mission to Greece, beginning a lifelong fascination with the ancient world. Between 1804 and 1806, he travelled widely through Greece, its islands, and Asia Minor. He recorded their landscapes and their ruins with detailed drawings. His early book, The Topography of Troy, attempted to identify the site of the ancient city of the same name. Gell later became famous for his work at Pompeii. Regarding that, he produced detailed illustrations of buildings, streets, and artifacts. His most important publication, Pompeiana, was the first major English language study devoted entirely to the city destroyed by the ashes of Mount Vesuvius. Gell was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1807 and became a member of the Society of Dilettanti, a group dedicated to classical study. He was also a friend of famous writers such as Lord Byron, who mentioned him in English bards and Scotch reviewers. Sir William Gell spent his final years in Naples, close to the ruins he loved, and died there in 1836. His legacy links this small Derbyshire parish to the ancient worlds of Greece and Pompeii. It gives Hopton a story that reaches far beyond the Dales. I'm sure some of you recognise this crinkle crankle wall from the Guess Where I Am short that I put out a little while ago now. I've never seen one of these things before, and I imagine not many people have. They are such fascinating things. How they use less bricks than normal straight walls, I will never know, but apparently they do. Right, let's continue through Hopton. I'm going to go round that bend just there. Let's find some more amazing houses. Moving on, there are other impressive buildings in this village aside from Hopton Hall. Here's Hopton House, which is nothing to do with Hopton Hall, but it's closely linked to the same landscape. It sits among old farm buildings and cottages on land that was once owned by the Gell family. Hopton House sits near the fields where a Paleolithic Acheulean hand axe was found, dated to around 200,000 years ago. The remarkable discovery shows that humans lived in the area long before the village existed. Hopton Manor House is another important historic building in the parish, again closely linked to the Gell family. The manor was part of the ancient seat of the de Hopton family, who lived here before the Gells acquired the estate in 1553. The manor house includes elements from the 16th century, built by Thomas Gell. The building originally had projecting straight gables and a traditional manor layout. Early features like those emphasise how important the house was in the village's development. In the 18th century, the manor was heavily remodelled and Georgianised, giving it a more formal appearance. Together with Hopton Hall, the two buildings tell the story of the Gell family's long influence on politics, the military, and the arts. Okay, parish notice board we have here. I haven't left many cars today because it's been so wet. I left one in Hognaston because it was in the bus shelter and obviously sheltered from the water. And this one I can actually lock away inside the board here because it's got a door on it. But otherwise I haven't seen any which would have been suitable. So that can do for Hopton and Carsington as well, seeing as they are right next door to each other. This is the Tudor Cottage, a Grade 2 listed building, first given that status in 1967. The cottage dates from the 17th century, with later 18th and 20th century alterations recorded in official listings. Visitors often admire how well it sits among the older houses. The cottage is built from limestone and gritstone rubble, with coins and dressings that show the craftsmanship of the period. Its plain tile roof and central brick ridge stack give it a traditional Derbyshire look. Its materials were taken from local quarries that supplied stone to many buildings. The south elevation faces the street and includes a mullioned window with drip moulds above it. Windows like those were common in Derbyshire during the 1600s. Right, we've now moved away from Hopton village and we're in the hills above the village. I've just come up a really steep hill called Hopton Via Gellia, and it brings you to Carsington pastures, which we mentioned earlier this week. Now, seeing as we're now at a higher altitude, the fog is a lot thicker, and that causes me a bit of a problem for this next landmark, because this is all you can see right now. Trust me, over there somewhere there's a wind farm. Carsington Wind Farm. Let's talk a bit about this. North of the village now, we're at Carsington Wind Farm here. This stands on Carsington pastures, overlooking the hills above the reservoir in the valley below. The site contains 4 wind turbines, each with a capacity of 2 megawatts, giving the farm a total output of 10 megawatts. The turbines sit at an elevation of around 316 metres above sea level, making the most of the strong upland winds. The wind farm was approved after a public inquiry in 2008, following earlier planning refusals. Construction began in 2012 and the turbines began generating electricity in 2014. Each turbine is a Senvion MM82 model with a rotor diameter of 82 metres and a hub height of 59 metres. The turbines begin generating power at 2.5 metres per second and reach optimal output at 6 metres per second. The upland winds make the location ideal for energy production. The wind farm is operated by West Coast Energy Limited, who also provide a local fund for residents of Carsington and Hopton. The parish receives £3,000 per year from Longcliffe Quarries as part of a wind farm benefit scheme. Carsington Pastures has a long history of wind power, as the hillside once hosted Hopton Windmill. The modern turbines continue this tradition in a new way, and it's a distinctive feature of the landscape, offering a modern contrast to the historic villages below. The quarry to the north of Hopton is part of the famous Hopton Wood Stone Workings, a limestone source known since the 18th century. The stone was first developed by the Gell family and later by the Hopton Woodstone Firms Limited. Hopton Woodstone was described as England's premier decorative stone, with an impurity level as low as 0.02%, making it almost identical to marble. It's been used in famous buildings such as the Houses of Parliament, Westminster Abbey, Chatsworth House, and even Oscar Wilde's tomb. A second quarry was opened by the Gells in 1789 after the original site was abandoned in around 1780. The Gells leased out the quarry to merchants such as George Pickard, who worked the stone for decades. The quarry is right next to the route of the Cromford and High Peak Railway, one of the earliest and most unusual railways in Britain. The line opened in 1831 and linked the Cromford Canal with the Peak Forest Canal. Its purpose was to move goods across the high limestone plateau. The railway carried limestone, lead ore and goods from the quarries and mines around Hopton and Wirksworth. Hopton wood stone was transported along the line before being sent to major cities, making the railway vital to the area's industrial growth. The line closed to traffic in 1967 after more than 130 years of service. Visitors today can walk along the old trackbed as part of the High Peak Trail. The railway was famous for its steep inclines, including the Hopton Incline, one of the steepest adhesion railways ever built. There was a tunnel on this line. Hopton Tunnel was cut through limestone to allow the railway to pass beneath the hillside. The tunnel is short, but it's atmospheric, with stone portals typical of early 19th century railway design. And finally, here's a piece on the King's Chair, a dramatic limestone outcrop on the hillside above Hopton, offering wide views across Carsington Water and the rest of the Dales. The feature sits on the edge of Carsington pastures. The name King's Chair is linked to local folklore, with stories suggesting it was once a lookout point or resting place for a visiting noble. While no written record confirms this, the site's commanding view makes the legend believable. The limestone it's made of is part of the lower Carboniferous rock that forms much of the Derbyshire Dales. This rock was laid down around 330 million years ago when the area was a warm tropical sea. Fossils can sometimes be found in the fields around the chair. The King's Chair also sits close to the old lead mining features, including hillocks and shafts linked to the Wirksworth mining district. It also lies near the route of the High Peak Trail, making it easy to reach from Hopton or Middleton Top. Today, the King's Chair is a favourite stop for walkers exploring Hopton and Carsington pastures. It's a mix of geology, folklore and wide views, and it makes it a memorable landmark. Visitors often take photos here before continuing their journey across the hills. As we leave Hopton behind, it's amazing to think how much history sits in such a small parish. Hopton has a quarry that supplied stone to Chatsworth House, stone pure enough to be mistaken for marble. With a tunnel on one of Britain's earliest railways and a viewpoint with a royal-sounding name, Hopton certainly does pack a punch, doesn't it? And that's before you consider the Gale family and their huge influence on the Dales, not to mention Greece and ancient Italy too. Hopton's stone cottages and quiet lanes tell some huge stories. Flanked by the calm waters of Carsington Water, it's little wonder why this place attracts so many people year after year. Come yourself, take a seat on the King's Chair, survey the view, and pretend you're royalty for a while.
Hopton by the water, where the hills meet the sky. Old stone and open fields as the seasons roll by. From the past to the present, every footstep feels strong. Hopton keeps on calling, it's where we belong. Hopton Hall stands steady with its long-held grace. Gale footsteps echo through that timeless place. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. Sir John rode out with purpose in the Civil War fight. Hopton he thundered on that March daylight. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. Hopton by the water, where the hills meet the sky. Old stone and open fields as the seasons roll by. From the past to the present, every footstep feels strong. Hopton keeps on calling, it's where we belong. ancient world with skill renowned. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. High on the chair where the limestone gleams, you look across the dales like the throne for dreams. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. Hopton by the water where the hills meet the sky, old stone and open fields as the seasons roll by. From the past to the present, every footstep feels strong. Hopton keeps on calling, it's where we belong. Turbines turn steady on the pastures high, new power spinning where the upland winds fly. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. Rails once cut through Hopton with a hard-won climb. Engines fought the incline in their iron time. This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales. Hopton, Hopton, This is Hopton in the Derbyshire Dales.
Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.